Good morning, everybody. You are welcome to the GNS101 class. This is Communication in English. My name is Dr. Emmanuel Adegbenro. In this course, several lecturers will be featuring from week to week. I happen to be the first to start you off. Maybe before we go into the lecture proper, let me just offer this general advice. Why I welcome you to Olabisi Onabanjo University, I must also tell you that in this place, you must be serious. You must be focused. Don't allow any distraction. My prayer for you is that your stay on this campus, I don't know how many years you have signed, depending on the course you have come here to pursue, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. My prayer is that you will end your career successfully in Jesus' name. So once again, you are welcome to GNS 101. The first topic we're going to be looking at is the nature and function of language. Now, let's talk generally about the nature and function of language. Number one is that language is as old as man. Immediately man was created, language was created within. You can be sure, because he will need to communicate, he will need to hear his views, express his mind. And so, as soon as man was created, language was created within. That is why we say language is as old as man. And of course, language is a means of interaction among members of a community. If you have any community, the only way through which they interact is through language. And then the most intimate possession of man is language. Man might have possessed a lot of things, houses, cars, clothes that he wears, the food that he eats, the tools that he uses every day. But the most intimate of all these possessions is language, meaning that anywhere a man goes, he doesn't carry his homes there or his house there, doesn't carry his tools most of the time with him, doesn't carry so many things with him, but he carries his language with him, and then he sleeps and wakes up with language. So it is the most intimate and closest of all possessions, that any man can have is language. Then language is the basis of all creative thought. Anything that creates in our thought, in our mind, is through language. And of course, language is also the most important form of communication employed by man. Man can engage a lot of communication system through symbols. When I clap my hand, for example, when I wink my eyes, when I stamp my feet, when I beckon, these are various forms of communication. But I need to tell you that the most important for this form of communication that man can employ is language. It's language. So let's move further as we see what language is now. Now, we are going to be looking at the meaning of language from two different points of view. Number one is from the sociological point of view, and the other one from a linguist point of view. From the sociological point of view, a language is seen as a means of socialization or a means of interaction among groups, among members of family, in a community, and so on and so forth. The means through which we socialize, we identify with each other, we make friends, we interact, we cement relationship, is language. Then from the linguist point of view, language is seen as a systematic body of rules or system of arbitrary symbols employed in the process of communication. Every language has a system, a systematic body of rules. If you break any of these rules, you will not be using that language well. It may not mean what you intend it to mean. So that is why language It's all about rules and rules and rules. Now, language also has components. So we'll be talking about components of language. Number one, we have phonology and phonetics. That is the aspect that deals with sound system, syllables, stress patterns, intonation, and so on and so forth. The phonemes of any language is they are part of the component of the phonetics and phonology. Some of you did all English when you were in secondary school. This aspect is the aspect of phonetics and phonology. And then we have morphology, which is talking about the word formation, how words are formed, how you can form a noun from a verb. For example, teach, teacher, manage, manager, how one morpheme can be used to form another word. How you can join one morpheme to another morpheme to form different words. That is morphology. Then we talk about the lexis aspect of language. Lexis itself is the word component. I mean, the word stock of a language. The word stock of a language. And the word stock of a language is found in any good dictionary of that particular language. For example, if you lay your hand on the Advanced Learner Dictionary, you will find more than 90% of all the words that are used in English language. And, in several other languages like that, they have dictionaries. So the dictionaries is a compilation of the lexis, the words, whether two-letter words or big vocabularies that have so many letters. They are the word stock of a language, lexis. Then we talk about syntax. Syntax is the structure of a language. That is the sentence formation, the clause formation, the phrase formation. How you join one word to another word to form group, to form phrases, clauses, and sentences is what we call the syntax component, the syntactic aspect of language. Then we have what we call semantics. Semantics deals with meaning, the meaning of words, the meaning of even starting from morpheme, the meaning of morpheme, the meaning of words, the meaning of phrases, the meaning of clauses, and the meaning of sentences in a language is the semantic component of that language. And then we also have the last one, which is called stylistics. Stylistics is the meaning according to specific field, according to use, according to period, according to the person that is using it, the individual that is using it. Every individual uses language in a way to reflect his own peculiarity. That is the stylistic aspect of the language. Now let's talk about the feature of human language generally. Every language, as long as it is a human language, they share some features, share some characteristics. Number one, every language is unique. For example, Yoruba is unique, it's different from English language. English is different from Igbo language. This uniqueness comes in form of the writing, the written form, in the spoken form, the intonation, the pronunciation, and in the symbols, and so on and so forth. That is the uniqueness. So one is not is different from the other. Even when two words of different languages are written the same way, they probably don't have the same meaning. They probably are not pronounced the same way. You understand? So that is the uniqueness that we can attribute to every human language. Then every human language has organized codes. We communicate in codes. Words are codes. The written form is a code. The spoken form is a code. And they are all well organized. Then human language also have what we call network of systems. And there are systems within systems. Talking about the sentence system, for example, sentence is a system in English language. Within that sentence system, you can have the clause structure, you can have the phrase structure, and so on and so forth. So they are network of systems. Then every language has the feature of arbitrariness. Arbitrariness, something arbitrary is something that is imposed. They are imposed by the users. So any learner of a language has no idea, has nothing to offer. You can't change anything. You can't modify it. It must be used according to how it has been stipulated. That is the arbitrary nature of language. Then language is also conventional. What it means is generally acceptable within the ambit or the I don't know, the location, the space, the ambit of space of the users. English language, for example, when you take a word like table, what table means here in Nigeria, as far as I am speaking English, is what table means in US, is what table means in UK, is what table means in Brazil. That is the conventional, aspect of that English language. And so it is with all other languages. The language is transmitted naturally. One of us just wake up, maybe as a Yoruba man, and you just wake up and you started speaking Yoruba because has been naturally transmitted to you. You live among people who speak the language, and then before you know it, you start to use that language. It is transmitted. It is not learned deliberately, even though sometimes we learn language deliberately, but in most cases, it is naturally transmitted. And language is creative. With language, we can create things. We create things in our thoughts. We create things in our construction. We create things in the world of science and technology, and so on and so forth. It is language that we use to do all this. The language is dynamic. This is one of the last features of human language that I'm going to be touching upon. With language is dynamic. It changes. That's why the kind of vocabulary that have entered into the dictionaries today, with the invention of computer, with the invention of jets and all the rest, might not have been in the dictionary about 10, 20 years ago. And that is the aspect of dynamism of language. Now let's talk about the functions of language generally. There are about 6 functions here. Number 1, language is informative. It performs the function of giving information. Through information, you pass across ideas, you give out your views, you express your opinion. This is informative function of language. And of course, it is also instrumental. With language, you can use language to change things, to invent things. You understand? You use language to make people do whatever they want to do. That is the instrumental function of language. It's an instrument. An instrument, for example, in the hand of educationists. It's an instrument in the classroom. It's an instrument in the law court. It's an instrument in the parliament. It's an instrument of the government. It's an instrument of the police. So language is instrumental. Then language is also regulatory. It's with language you can make rules. You can make rules. You can make rules. You can make people to do whatever they want them to do. Go out. Come here. Stand up. Don't do this, don't do that. So these are regulatory function of language. It's also interactional. Language performs the function of interaction among one another, between one person and the other, in the society, in the community, in a group of people. It is with language that we can interact. It is also heuristic. Language performs heuristic function. By heuristic function, we mean the function of language which we use to learn, which we use to discover, which we use to explore. You understand? When you ask question, for example, in a class, you are using language to perform heuristic function, to add comments or commentary, to some things that have been said. That is heuristic function of language. And then language also performs imaginative function. With language, we can create imaginative things. Look at your fictional work that some people have written. Look at some inventions people have made, which have found expression in our world today. It is through language that they have been able to achieve all those things. Now, let's go into this very vital aspect of this lecture, of this course, and we call this one language quiz. Later on, Dr. Layemi will be taking you on elaborately on the speaking skills, But now we have what we call language skills generally, and there are 4 language skills. We have the listening skill, we have the speaking skill, we have the reading skill, and we have the writing skill. These skills are interwoven. No one can be can be can be taken out of the other. All of them are well knitted. Anyone who learns a language must learn the first skills. It must not, you know, it must not step down anyone. A listening skill is not independent of the speaking skill. Neither is speaking skill independent of the reading skill. The reading skill is not independent of the writing skill. They are the four skills that are very, very important, paramount when a language user to learn. We will take this on very briefly. But before then, before we explain what each of them actually means, or as you will be exposed to in the course of this lecture, I need to tell you that these language skills are divided into two. We have the receptive skill and we have the productive skill. The receptive skill are two. The receptive skill are the listening skill and the reading skill, while the productive skills are the writing skill and the speaking skill. What is receptive skill? Receptive skill is what you take in, what you absorb. It means when you listen, you take something in. When you read, you take something in. You receive information. That is why we call these two skills receptive. Then the productive skills is the output, is what you produce. Writing is productive. Speaking is productive. So what it means is this. Receptive is taken from someone else, from some sources. You know, it could be material. When you read, it could be from someone. When you listen to someone talk, it could even be listening to the radio, listening to the television. But the productive skill is when you bring something out of you, you know, you express yourself for others to utilize in form of writing for others to read, in form of speaking for others to now listen. So when you are doing one, there are some people that are the other hand doing the other. For example, when you are the receptive skill, some are at the productive end. When you are the productive end, there are some who are at the receptive end. And we see that this thing interacts very well. That is why we draw this this language skill in form of this three-hand shape like that. So let's look at the listening skill. There are two types of listening any person can do. We have what we call effective listening or passive listening. What we call effective listening is also known as active listening or formal listening, whichever one you want to adapt. But take note, what we call effective listening is also called active listening, and active listening is also called formal listening. Whereas passive listening is also called social listening. Social listening is also called informal listening. So these are the two types of listening that we have. It's either it is effective or it is passive. What is it when we say effective listening? Effective listening is listening for you to be able to reproduce exactly what you have listened to. So when you are doing effective listening, it means after you have listened, you can say the same thing the way the person who said it has said it. That is effective listening. And it is usually for a specific purpose. For example, what you do as students in the classroom is effective listening because you want to listen in order that you'll be able to reproduce when examination comes. That is active listening. When you read, for example, you do active reading. And it is what is also called formal. Because when they ask you a question about what has been said or what you have read, you want to also be able to say it, maybe word for word, or in form of paraphrase, exactly what has been said. Then it makes your listening is effective. When you do effective listening, you are able to reproduce, to say exactly, to express yourself the way the person who has whom you have listened to has expressed himself. But in passive listening, it is just for sometimes for entertainment. At the end of the passive listening, you are not able to reproduce what has been said. You only listen passively, not actively. You only listen for social interaction, just for you to have, at the end of such events, you are not able to say exactly or, you know, a significant portion of what has been said to you. That is, it means what you are doing is passive listening, or what we call social listening, or what we call informal listening. Now, there are elements of listening. 3, for example, you have the speaker, you have the message, and you have the hearer. The 3 of them interact. Before one can talk about listening, somebody must be speaking, and that is what is called the person that is called the speaker. And then the speaker must have been expressing certain things, communicating in certain things. What is communicating, what is expressing is the message. So that is why it is also involved in the process of listening. And then there is the receiver, which is the hearer. So 3 things are involved in listening: the speaker, the message that is speaking about, that is communicating, and then the one who is hearing in the course of the listening event. The 3 of them are very, very important. And as a student, you must focus on, as a student, you will be the hearer. Then you must focus on the speaker, and you must also focus on the message that he is communicating to you. Everyone is important. If there is no hearer, the speaker is useless. If the speaker has no message, then he himself is useless. If the message is there and there is no hearer, so the 3 of them interact in a kind of circle. The speakers, communicate message to be received by the hearer, and of course the hearer, can also be passing across message, whereby the speaker will not be the hearer at the same time. So it is an interactional thing. It's an interactional thing. Now, let's talk about the rules that guide effective speaking. You must speak effectively. What are the things that you should do? Number 1, do not try to grasp everything said by the teacher. There are things that the teacher will say that are, that are outside the ambit of the main information that is trying to pass across to you. Don't try to grasp everything. You only pay attention to the cogent points that the teacher has raised. Number 2, pay attention to teacher's opinion. The teacher's opinion matters a lot. Your opinion does not matter. In most cases, in a classroom, especially for effective speaking, you must listen to the teacher's opinion, because it is the teacher that will examine you. So if you have a different opinion from what he has, you could be shooting yourself in the leg. Now, number 3, be quick to discover essential details. When the teacher is giving the essential details, you must be very quick to identify such in the course of the teacher speaking to you, especially for classroom interaction. Do not attempt to write everything said by the teacher. So, of course, as you grasp the salient points, the most important point, write them down. That's why some people don't know how to take note. They want to write all the things that the teacher is saying. If you want to do that, you miss a lot. But only listen to important points and then attempt to write the important things down. See what you hear. There are some things that are important. There are some things that are not important. You must be able to see which one do I hear, which one should I not hear. A teacher may bring in a joke, to explain certain things, to make the class more lively. That shows that it's not important. But listen and see what you hear, so that you'll be able to take what is important. Then overcome your personal deficiencies. Listening deficiencies, maybe eye deficiency, and so on and so forth. So you must be able to overcome this. If you are such a person that will not be able to hear at a long distance, you have to move to the close. You have to be within the close range of the teacher. You cannot see the board from afar. You must move close to where you can see the board. These are some of the things you must develop. Even you must know yourself. You must know yourself very well. You must know yourself. Some people don't know themselves. They go and sit at the back of the class. What the teacher is saying at the board, they cannot hear. Some people sit at the back of the class. What the teacher is writing at the board, because they have eye defect, they cannot see clearly. So you must be able to overcome your personal deficiency. Some people will stay in the midst of people making a noise, and they can still grasp information that is being relayed to them. Whereas some people are easily distracted. So you must be able to know the type of person that you have and overcome your personal deficiency. Then you must avoid disturbance, movement up and down, not concentrating, looking outside. Maybe something else is happening outside the classroom. You must avoid this disturbance and distraction. You must also avoid a roaming mind. Let your mind concentrate when someone is speaking to you. As you do this, you'll be doing effective listening. Now, what are the advantages of effective listening? Number one, it will expand your knowledge. If you listen well, I mean, not passive listening, you are doing effective listening, it will expand your knowledge. What you know before we increase, will be enlarging the scope of your knowledge. Then, number two, it will develop, please take note of that, it will develop your vocabulary. Your vocabulary volume will be increasing. Maybe you have learned only about 1,000 words in that particular language before. When the teacher is speaking, you'll be adding new dictionary, new vocabularies. When he uses a word that you have not heard before, you write them down, you check the meaning, then you know that one. Then it will correct your wrong pronunciation. There may be a wrong way you have been pronouncing a word before, but when you listen effectively, you learn the correct pronunciation. And it will help you to understand your lecture better when you do effective listening. And it will help you to understand many words. Apart from that, it will help you to contribute meaningfully to a lecture and as well save your time. So this is where we are going to draw the curtain. Very soon, you'll be writing your exam. You need to go through this slide and read the notes that you'll be given. And to do that, I wish you good luck. All this. Thank you.